Tesla Effect, a Tex Murphy adventure. First off, you should know this is not a Wii U game or a PlayStation 4 game. It's a PC game. Now, why am I reviewing a PC game? Well, this one kind of had a special place in my heart, and I really wanted to do it. So you know what? I'm gonna. Now, this game is the next chapter in the Tex Murphy series. I have been a huge fan of the 3 previous games: Under a Killing Moon, Pandora Directive, and Overseer. Overseer ended on a cliffhanger, and there was supposed to be another game to resolve it. But in the meantime, Microsoft bought the company, and then killed any possibility of another title.
An old Zoom portable music device. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, my mom got me one of these while all the other kids were getting iPads and iPods. I remember just how I felt that day. Wonder what happened to it. Oh yeah, now I remember.
The creators eventually got the rights back from Microsoft and put out a Kickstarter campaign to bring Tex Murphy back to the gaming world, and it worked as thousands gave them enough money to complete this game. Now, this might not surprise you, but you play as Tex Murphy, an old-fashioned PI who has lost his memory for the last 7 years. Now he'll have to track down leads, talk to witnesses, and uncover what he's been doing for the past 7 years. The biggest draw of the Tex Murphy series is its great use of full motion video. Now, I know usually great use of full motion video is not something you usually hear, but don't let the use of full motion video scare you off. The title is a lot of fun to play, and that's because of the full motion video, not in spite of it. Now, if you don't know what full motion video is, that means basically you get to watch movies of what's going on. Now, these full motion video sections are numerous, and they all looked amazing. They used HD cameras, and compared to the previous games, it's like night and day. That being said, everything is done on green screens, and anytime someone goes through a door, it looks incredibly fake and awkward. Plus, there were moments of Tex Murphy running that looked like a guy running in place with the background moving. While the full motion video sections look great, the 3D environments and some of the computer generated sections look like Sharknado quality of computer effects. It looked good for an adventure game, but it really stood out when you bookended it with the HD video. Chris Jones, who plays Tex Murphy, looks just like he did back in the 90s. And he still does a great job of portraying the private detective that we all know and love. It's amazing how many of the people from the previous games have come back to reprise their roles. This game is just as funny as always. This series has always had a sense of humor which bordered on absurd, but I say that in the best way possible.
Oh yeah, come in now and everything stops moving. A minute ago, it was like Fantasia in here.
Now, since this is a full motion game, that means you're going to be talking to real people and not just computer characters. So interacting with them was either really compelling or very awkward. It really came down to how good an actor the person was. One of the new characters was a very compelling love interest. I wish she was a bigger part of this game. That's how much I liked her character. Contrast that acting ability with the new police chief, who was just awful. You could just tell he was reading cue cards with his deadpan deliveries. However, for the most part, the acting was just fine. One of the more annoying parts is that when you're talking to one of the characters and a conversation tree shows up, it wouldn't tell you what would happen if you pick a choice. It kind of told you in like a generic way. And that's an unusual choice for a game which has multiple endings based on the way you talk to some of the characters in the game. They should have made it way more clear on the snarky thing that Tex would say to the other person. This wasn't an issue with the other games in the series, so really I can't understand why they would change this. The story itself was good, and overall the pacing was great. There were sections of the game towards the end which seemed out of place for this game and its quick-moving storyline. However, I feel they just wanted to pad out the playtime, which is about 12 to 14 hours, so that's why I think this scenario seems to go on longer than it should have. Much like the ridiculously long Roswell section in the Pandora Directive. Now the story is broken down into 12 different days. Really, they should have called them chapters, not days, because the day breaks can sometimes come at the strangest times. Now I know they've been doing this in the previous series, but when you're setting up a new day practically 10 minutes after the other one, it feels odd. There was one story plot that made no sense, and I don't tend to get into spoilers, but this one was just bugging me too much not to talk about it. So if you don't want spoilers, go ahead and skip to the 5-minute 52-second mark. So our hero Tex Murphy is rescuing this guy. He uses a laser cutter to cut off his shackles. Okay, I'm totally cool with that. That makes sense. However, Tex starts to use the laser cutter to cut away the bars of the cell, which outside there is nothing but a long fall to the ground. He's been able to get around this area and leave it more than once. So why can't he just do this again with somebody else? Why is he cutting the bars? It's not like his flying car is outside the window, which by the way would have been way easier to get this guy than the way he ended up doing it. The guy Tex comes to rescue ends up jumping out the window to his death just to escape the bad guys, which was really the only reason those bars were cut. You travel through a 3D world, which I had no problems with the frame rate, as most of the time it was pretty smooth. However, unlike my other reviews, this isn't really something that can be true for everybody, as everybody's computer is different. And you should look up the minimum specs to see if your computer can run this game. If you played any of the previous games, then you'll know that the main place that you play on seems familiar. All of the games starting with Under a Killing Moon has started in this one neighborhood, and it was nice to see them come back to it. It kind of felt like home, with all the old locations there and new ones blending in perfectly. Some of the new ones were a new barbecue place, a rival detective's office, and an abandoned building who someone has decided to put photos all over it. And if you click on these photos, you'll hear Tex say something unique about each one of them.
He looks a little too young to be in here. What's he doing at the Savant School? He looks like an ale-swilling, lightning-riding Norse god. I have the funniest feeling that this guy is pantsless. I don't trust that cat, not one bit.
These photos are the Kickstarter funders who had paid at least $500 to be included in this game. It was amazing to see all the incredible people who joined together to make this title possible.
Most likely to be reincarnated as Jerry Garcia?
And if you don't know, that's me. I am one of those people who kickstarted this game, and I feel I've gotten my money's worth completely. Now this isn't the only place in the game where photos will show up, but this is the easiest one to get to. Now I did have some issues with the sound cutting out. It happened more often than you might think. Now this is probably going to get fixed in an update, but at the time of this review, it hadn't been fixed yet as far as I know. But since everything is subtitled, it really is a minor complaint. Now this title is part point-and-click adventure game and part puzzle game. If you don't enjoy puzzle games and you only want to play the adventure part, don't worry, you can skip almost any puzzle. The only downside is a loss of points. And if you don't care about points, this really isn't going to be a loss at all. The points really only come up for bragging rights. At the end of the game, it tells you how good a detective you are based on the points that you have. The adventure part of this game is the normal type of point-and-click adventure type of puzzles. Use an object on something or combine it on one thing to make another. The items that you could carry were sometimes blended in with the background or very well hidden. To help you out on the easier modes, you have a flashlight that will sparkle on items that can be picked up or manipulated. Also, the game has an internal hint system. However, unlike the previous games, if you click on the hint, it will give you the whole way of finishing the objective. I really wish they had kept the one little part of the hint at a time as part of the hint system. It was annoying to try and ignore the other hints when you're just trying to get a little bit of help instead of just getting the answer outright. The items that you needed to find were usually pretty close to the area that you were at. Very rarely did you have items from a previous location that you would need to use in a new location. It made the adventure puzzles fairly easy to figure out. Now the puzzles themselves could get really tricky, but like I said, you can skip them in the easiest mode. But if you decide to go in the harder mode, you can't skip the puzzles, the flashlights won't glow items, and the hint system is inaccessible. But if you've already played the game once, you're probably going to want the challenge, so this isn't so hard. But you might ask, why would you want to replay the game? Because there are multiple endings, and these endings will be based on the people that you meet and the way you react to them. There are also comics you can find in locations that you travel. If you find them all, you will unlock a special place after you finish the game. So that also is some more replayability. Tesla Effect was not only a great Tex Murphy game, it was a great adventure game as well. The full motion video looked outstanding. It controlled fine, and overall the story was very good and compelling. Now I know a lot of people out there would say that Pandora Directive was the best game in the series, and I would have agreed with you before this game. Now I can say this is definitely the best of the Tex Murphy games. That's not to say it doesn't have its faults, but overall it is fantastic. And for the crazy great price of $20, I think you should definitely buy it now.